Hello, I'm Rosi de Ruig, and this is how I live with style. I live here with my husband and 3 children, and we moved in here about 15 years ago. I've been working with craft boats for a number of years now, so I'm lucky enough to go to Jaipur reasonably frequently. And this splashback here, which I love, was sourced in India, and the colours work perfectly. I think pink and green work particularly well together because they're optimistic colours. They're sort of a surprising mix in some ways, but they just make me feel good, and they seem to have a positive effect on other people as well. Before I became a lampshade designer, I realised in hindsight that I had other ways that I expressed my creativity. I used to design tea cozies, for instance, slightly crazy things, and also rather splendid sausage dogs. But in addition to that, I loved cooking. I grew up in a home where my mother always made things from scratch, and that's sort of firmly embedded in me. One of the reasons I love having a big kitchen, this is where it all happens. I'd always prefer to have slightly smaller bedrooms and a big living space, because this is where we can hang out, we can be together as friends, as family. I have built up this tendency wherever I go and we have time at an airport to buy a little memento, and it's always a moment of crisis at the airport. My family are saying, "Come on, Mum, we've got to go, and I'm like, no, I've got to get my Statue of Liberty, and on countless occasions we've nearly missed our flight as a consequence, so I'm sorry, children, to put you through that stress. This particular one, we're on holiday in Florence, and I just couldn't decide which size, which variation. My children are freaking out because we're going to miss the plane. Anyway, I think he looks just marvellous there, so I feel I chose the right one in the end, even though I did put my family through a ridiculously stressful time. Having lived in the house for about 5 years, and the children were beginning to get a little bit older, we took time to think about how we wanted the house to work going forward. And so we built this wall here so we could have the dining room table on one side and a bar on the other. I love this little area of my kitchen, and this particular spot is a good place for me to put some things that I might find on the market. I love going to markets, particularly down in Bridport, where we have a house, but I really enjoy putting things in collections of 3. And so if I find one thing, I'm always on the search for the other pair. But the problem is what if I find a 4th? So there lies an opportunity. I can then start another whole collection, maybe of 3. So these then will get moved on, and I can put something else here in their place. Recently, it was my 40th birthday. My husband very sweetly got me a record player, and it was an opportunity to get out all my records from when I was younger and to have a reminder of what was my first record. Was it Adam and the Ants? Was it Kajagoogoo, Too Shy Shy? Anyway, any which way, I have found that I've wrote my name on the back of them just to make sure that my brother or sister didn't get their hands on them. It's always lovely when friends come round and I get all my records out and we have a rummage through looking at all the old LPs and singles and have a remember about who had what record when. And we have a drink and we listen to some music, and then we go around the corner for dinner. When we decided to do this renovation and we wanted a designated dining area, I knew instinctively it was a perfect opportunity to have some lovely wall bumps. So what I did is I gave my husband a very specific job, and he was going to set up searches on auction houses. I remember very clearly the day it happened. I got lots of missed calls, and he was just like, they've come, they've finally arrived. And it was after months of searching, something had finally landed in his inbox. In here is what we call the den, and it's a den for all the family for different reasons. The dogs love going in there for a nice quiet snooze. The children like being in there. They can be in there with friends and have a quiet time. I love nothing better than being in there in the evening after a long day. And there's something about a windowless room that could have disadvantages, but I actually think it's rather wonderful because you can just forget about whatever's going on outside and not feel guilty about just having a quiet moment with the television, and it's very, very relaxing. Our wonderful decorator looked slightly crestfallen when I showed him this inspiration by Gavin Houghton, decorator, of his Moroccan beautiful house with red striped ceiling, and that I wanted to replicate that here but with blue stripes. And he was really up for it, and he did a fabulous job. And I am so pleased and grateful that he did, because it adds a surprise and an element of energy to the room that wouldn't be there otherwise. When we were clearing out my mother's house after she died, these chairs were in a terrible state, and the wonderful furniture restorer Phil down in Dorset did an extraordinary job of putting them together, and combined with pattern from Kath Kidson's business Joy of Print, I think they work really well and look so smart. I really enjoy collecting china. It's another market hobby of mine. Whether it's one just very pretty piece, or if I'm lucky enough to find a set of 6. Green, as you can see, is a bit of a firm favourite, but mixing it up with little other bits and pieces that I've inherited from my mother or my mother-in-law. As you can tell, I really enjoy colour. I think it has a very positive effect on people, and I love seeing people's reaction when they come to my house. This green was a brilliant find from Dulux. I think it's absolutely spot on. It's exactly what I was looking for, and I couldn't find it anywhere else. Our sitting room is painted yellow, a really lovely yellow. I have to admit, there isn't a single white wall in this house, which is quite an alarming thought. But I do think I'd be more afraid of a white wall than a coloured wall. I think white is really difficult to work with, which I know sounds extraordinary to someone who doesn't like colour, but white feels too empty and too complicated. When we moved into this house, it had a blue, it was a very pretty blue. It was a sort of old Farron Bull bluey green, which I like very much, but quickly realised that as the sun sets on this side of the house, it didn't feel as warm as it could when the sun was out. And so I started experimenting with yellows, and that quickly made me realise it would be a very, very good colour to use in this room to capture that late afternoon moment. Everywhere downstairs I've gone completely mad with yellow, because I love the way that light at different times of the day hits it and what it does to the space. In the evening it's so lovely, all the blinds are down, the lights are on, and it's very warm and rich. It's very cosy. I was on a girls' trip with a friend, her daughter and my daughter, in Paris, and our daughters were very focused on thrifting, and I was very keen on going up to Montmartre and seeing the markets up there. It was our last day, last few hours, and we had our bags with us, and I saw these sconces and I could see the look of horror flutter across my daughter's face, because she knew that I was planning on buying these and I would be lugging them around for the rest of the day, but I was so glad that I did. So this is Peggy. She's our very wonderful family black Labrador who's been with us about 9 years. We all absolutely love her. And this is little Miss Dot, who's been with us just over 2 years, who's a right little scoundrel, but I absolutely love her for as much her naughty ways as her sweet. And poor Peggy went into a deep decline for about 6 months after Dot arrived. I think she was rather depressed and rather like we'd brought back another woman or something. But they're now great friends. We moved into this house about 15 years ago. We'd shortly come back from New York. We'd inherited quite a few bits and pieces from my parents-in-law, including some quite oversized lamps and I went on the hunt for some lampshades, and the offerings that I found were either not very nice in my opinion, a bit boring, or not very well made, and actually quite expensive for what they were. I used to like going to the stationery shops. There was a particular shop down near Victoria called Shepherd's, which sold beautiful papers. And I thought, why not give paper a go? And that's how it started. I started working with glorified wrapping paper from Cambridge Imprints, and then there was some nice marble paper from someone called Pay Hembury. And there's a freshness to them. And that was even before I realised quite how much I could manipulate paper, that you can pleat with them, you can puncture holes in them. There's so much you can do with paper that, in a way, fabric has more limitations. So maybe we can go upstairs. I'd love to show you up there as well. So this is our bedroom, and when we first moved in, it felt quite a large and daunting space. It's a big room, high ceilings. I quickly realised that I wanted to encase this in something quite warm and cosy, and I'd been working with Flora Roberts, who's a botanical artist and wallpaper designer, for some time, and so it seemed a perfect opportunity to use her wallpapers. And it made me so happy. Waking up to this in the morning is just the most lovely thing. This carpet, or very large rug, was an IKEA find. The colours work really well with everything else going on here. A nice decorator again, who I asked to do the stripes downstairs then. I think his face slightly fell when I gave him his next project, which was this cabinet I found online and got him to cover it in its entirety. He had the good idea of just keeping the edging white, which I think makes it quite chic. I think this is rather a handsome fireplace because it's got this lovely big mantelpiece. And the fire actually works, which is rather lovely. So occasionally on a winter's night, we light the fire. But my bathroom is probably one of my favourite rooms in the whole house. Absolutely love it in here. This room for me just sums up everything that's relaxing about life. Come back. You know, I've been working away making lampshades, which, although I love, is quite strenuous physically, and so I can come in here and have a lovely bath. And there's an enormous bath, which is fabulous, particularly as we're a family of tall people. And I can have some of my lovely bath products from Catherlee, and my cordless lamps, which I have to say are rather brilliant, and light a few candles and just have a nice quiet moment here. So the boar behind me was commissioned by my husband when his parents had a house in the south of France, and there were lots of wild boar running around down there, and it was by an artist called Eric Scott. And when my husband got his first flat, I think it was the first thing, if not the only thing he had to move in with. But the colour, that kind of arsenic-y, bluey green, is fabulous, and the boar's been with us ever since. When we decided to get married and we picked the date that worked best for us, well, my husband had momentarily forgotten it actually happened to be the same day that his parents had got married. And his mother very sweetly gave us this embroidery, which is full of little Dutch motifs. It's a nice reminder of two very happy days. I just want to talk about this rather brilliant bookcase that we bought quite early on in our time in this house from Conran's shop. It's one of the few pieces of furniture that we've bought new, just because we've had things given to us from our families and the love of going market shopping, and it's I don't know, it gives us a huge amount of enjoyment, the way that all the books are piled up. They look like they're about to fall down, but they never quite do. I hope you've enjoyed looking around my home, and please do remember to subscribe to the Times Life and Style YouTube channel.